Hello to everybody who had a surprisingly good support system in high school, of all places. It's Beautiful Anonymous. 1 hour, one phone call, no names, no holds barred.
I'd rather go one-on-one. I think it'll be more fun, and I'll get to know you, and you'll get to know me.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Beautiful Anonymous. If you want my tour dates and info on our bonus content, check out the intro, but I know not all of you like intros, so check out beautifulanonymous.com for bonus content, punchup.live/Chris Gethard for touring dates. In the meantime, if you just want to skip to the call and you're not into the intro, you want to skip about 7-8 minutes, that'll put you right towards the beginning of the phone call. Enjoy it. Hi, everybody. Chris Gethard here, welcoming you to another episode of Beautiful Anonymous. Thanks, as always, to everybody who has signed up at beautifulanonymous.com. Have to tell you, I like to report and let everybody know how we're doing on the numbers on that thing. I think it's interesting, and I think it's all access. And I've long said if we get to 2,000 subscribers within the first year, I get a big financial bonus. But I gave up on it happening a long time ago. I will say a lot of people were intrigued by our caller a couple weeks back, just talking about becoming a truck driver, having a kid in the military, telling his wife that he was bisexual. And we did indicate that he told a story called Kinky Claws in the bonus content. Happy to tell you that there were dozens of signups of people, all you pervs out there who just wanted to hear what Kinky Claws was all about. I see you, and I'm happy to have you on board. Welcome, pervs. We are up to 833 people as of this recording, which if you go back and track it, that's dozens more. So thanks to everybody who's been signing up, and I stand by it. I think the bonus content is really great. We put a lot of thought into how to make it a simple, streamlined thing. You get extended episodes every week. If you're at that top tier, you get a follow-up call with a classic caller. You get a private number once a month with a call session that's only for people at that tier. And of course, if you sign up at any of those tiers, we recently turned it ad-free. So removes all the advertisements from the process as well. Thanks to everybody on that. Thanks to everybody who's been buying tickets to my upcoming tour. I got a lot of tour dates. I was trying to take it easy this summer, and then things just broke in a way where I'm getting out there. It was funny. I'm working with this new site, punchup.live/Chris Gethard is where you can go find my tour dates now, where I'm doing stand-up and eventually probably some Beautiful Anonymous live dates, which we actually are doing one coming up in Philadelphia. I got to get the actual date of that before this intro. Not only are we doing it, it's as part of something really classy, firstpersonarts.org, and it's free. So Philly, you've always had my back. I'll plug that show first because that's Tuesday, July 2nd, 7 p.m. It's part of Fringe Arts, firstpersonarts.org. You can find it. Go reserve a seat. They're bringing us down. We get to do it for free. Here's the price for members at First Person Arts. Free. Non-member price. Free. That's awesome. So come hang out. It's our only live Beautiful Anonymous taping of the year is scheduled for July 2nd. Philly. Can't wait. It's always been a town that's had my back. And South Jersey, you know I need you to descend upon it. And this is part of a festival that is literally sponsored by Wawa. So that's huge. Punchup.live/Chris Gethard. You can find all my tour dates. And I tell you what, they really do a good job of being able to tell me, like, here's the links that are leading to the most sales. Here's the dates and times. And they said, we have no idea why, but you always get your biggest bursts of ticket sales on Tuesday and Wednesdays. And I said, here's why. Because the Beautiful Anonymous community has my back, baby. And there's some shows coming up that I don't think I've announced on the show before. So just to let you know, I got June 29th in Lancaster, PA, June 30th in Woodstock, New York. New show July 7th in Evansville, Indiana. I just mentioned July 2nd, Philly, live taping, free. July 30th, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, Bottle Rocket Social Hall, one of my favorite venues out there. July 31st, Morgantown, West Virginia. And then in August, I won't list all the dates, but I'm going to Kansas City, St. Louis. I'm going to try to say this next one. People keep going nuts on me in the Facebook group. Cudahy, Wisconsin. Apparently I've never said this right even one time. But what's very funny is that all the people debating whether or not I say Cudahy, Wisconsin, it's actually one of the shows that has the most sales. So you guys are all enjoying it. So thank you so much for that. We'll also be in Chicago. We'll be in Ferndale, Michigan, Lakewood, Ohio. And then in October, Somerville, Mass., Garwood, New Jersey, Baltimore, Maryland, Hamden, Connecticut. Also got news for you. The shows that are closest to selling out, my Jersey people, October 3rd in Garwood, New Jersey. My Baltimore people, the Auto Bar, much love. Much love. My home away from goddamn home, the Auto Bar. Baltimore, that show's almost sold out. Thank you for that. So if you want to come see me in Jersey or Baltimore, I know the show's not till October. Grab your tickets right now. punchup.live/Chris Gethard. Thanks, everybody. This week's episode, really beautiful call. Definitely need to brace you a little bit. There's talk of suicidal ideation. There's talk of not having a home. Sadly, these are common factors in the trans community. Our caller is a trans male. Speaks so simply and plainly to where life's at. Kind of makes a point right out of the gate of saying, I'm not really interested in getting too sad. I don't want to bum you or anybody else out. And just sort of told a bunch of stories about where they're at, how they're thinking, where they're headed, how they came to embrace their truth. Very casual. If anyone, it's me that kind of holds, a few times throughout the call where I go, wait, hold on. I just want to stress that, like, that is the reality you just laid out. And it's the reality for a lot of people, and it's a bummer, and it's sad. And I don't want to rush past that. If anybody, it's me who kind of says a bunch of those things. But I will just say, no group, in my opinion, has been put under a microscope as intensely the past few years as trans people. I don't totally understand the obsession. I very much think it's unfair in so many ways. I am aghast that some high-level comedians have led the charge on focusing that microscope in. We talk about that a little bit. As always with this show, one of the things I'm most proud of is you get to hear people as people in their own words. Barely editing, if there's any at all, on any given week. With laughs and chuckles and interruptions and tangents and thoughts that kind of peter out, because that's real life and that's how humans speak to each other. So put down the think pieces, put down the magnifying glasses and the microscopes, and just hear a person talk about who they are and what they have to think about in life, just like every other week. I really loved this caller. In the bonus content, we talk about some really funny stuff. And I do say at one point, I go, me and you could probably sit and talk for 2 or 3 more hours and not get bored. And I did feel like we just kind of vibed on that level in a way I was psyched on. And I hope you're psyched on it too. Enjoy the call, everybody.
Thank you for calling Beautiful Anonymous. A beeping noise will indicate when you are on the show with the host.
Hello.
Hello.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
I'm pretty good. A little tired, but generally good.
Good. Definitely. Oh, man, I'm nervous.
No need.
I guess, sorry.
Oh, no, please. Yeah, no, go for it.
I've been listening to the show for so long. I'm such a big fan, so just want to say thanks for everything. So cool.
Thanks for listening. Thanks for supporting.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I'm glad we finally got you on the show too, if you've been listening for a while.
Yeah, definitely. I've been calling. I've called probably a bunch of times, and I didn't really expect to get on, honestly. I didn't really make it this far in my head. So,
Well, I've always said, I'm like, I want to keep the show going until there's zero demand when we put out the call prompt.
it's so cool.
Like, I don't think we get 15,000, back in after we were featured on This American Life, it's like I tweet out the number, 15,000 people try to call. I think it's slowed down considerably, but we still got a long line of people with stories to tell. So
Wow.
I will stick around as long as that's the case.
Wow. Well, it makes me feel even cooler that I have this opportunity. So thank you.
Oh no, please. What would you like to talk about today? Do you have a plan on this one, or are we just going to wing it? Whatever you think.
I guess kind of a mix of both. I guess in my head it was kind of like I'm in this kind of cool spot in my life. So I could go into that a little bit. It's a weird transition. It's been a crazy year. But good, I think. Heading that way, at least.
That sounds good. That's very intriguing.
Cool. It's been cool. I think it's kind of good timing because all the times I didn't call, I didn't really have much to talk about. So it's kind of neat that it ended up this way. Yeah, I guess. I'm staying with my sister's family right now in North Carolina, temporarily, but I'm making my way towards Colorado. Hopefully August. I got some cool things in the works to get there. So hopefully a little bit of an adventure coming up. I was in Indiana before, so I'm hoping, yeah, we'll get there. It's been kind of crazy, but I'm a trans man, so mostly just trying to get to a state with a little bit better legal situation, better access to meds and all that. And I don't know, just kind of need an adventure in life, Kinda.
Yeah. Now, I want to ask you, because you just said, trying to get to a state with a better medical situation, and you said it with a chuckle, and I respect the chuckle. I also am someone who is of the mindset of like, for a lot of people, and again, in no world would I ever say don't chuckle, but I'm like, I also hear that and I go, well, this is it's not a laughing matter in the large ways too, though. And I'm sure that you have felt that, and I don't want to dictate any grimness or whatnot, but I'm also like, I will just say, what a real life thing to go. I'm living a life where it's necessary for me to have to physically move my location to get to a place where I have access to safety and medicine. Like I appreciate you laughing while you said it, but I'm also like, man, what a scary thing. What a bummer.
Yeah, well, that's actually kind of awesome that you say that. I feel like, and well spotted, I do cope by laughing at everything. My favorite coping skill. But yeah, I feel like that has been a thing that I've been struggling in my life to make the people in my life kind of understand the weight of. So that's really kind of super validating. Thanks. It's definitely, I think easy to take for granted a lot of that safety and access to medicine. And so yeah, the weight of that is definitely that's true. It's definitely not a laughing matter. And it's been a fight. I started transitioning probably like 10 years ago, but medically I couldn't get access to care until probably 3 years ago, after being on wait lists for a few years and all that. And then I lost insurance a couple of times, and then I was sleeping in my car for a little bit, and so it's definitely been a fight. But yeah, it's definitely, I feel like a lot of the people in my life don't really understand why it's so important to me to get to a state. Everyone's like trying to convince me not to move. I'm like, I don't know how to put this in a way that makes sense. That like, you know, I could use a public restroom and not have to worry about it so much, you know, like those little things. I could get a different job. I could get, you know, go into what I'm going to school for without having to worry I'm going to lose my medicine. And so, yeah, I guess it is a big thing.
For sure. But it's also one, you know, I feel it's funny. Andrea even just typed in our chat, like, so many people calling to this show are of the nervous laughing type, and I think that's true. There's been a few episodes that have been defined by nervous laughter, and I sit here and I go, man, well, what else can we, like, as individuals, sometimes when you face adversity, what else can you do except find the way to try to laugh in the face of it or laugh in recognition of it? Because if not, you live in fear of it or under the control of it. So I get it. But hearing that, there's so much to talk about. First thing I feel honor bound to say is, as somebody who has dwelled in the world of comedy for a couple decades now, I also want to just say, I feel like my culture has made life harder for your culture, and I don't like it.
Oh,
I think it's a bummer. So as a comedian, I just want to say, there's too many comedians out here scrambling to find their take on a trans joke or a gender joke, and it's officially hack. Your pronouns joke, everybody else has gotten it to it before, and it bums me out that comedy somehow became a bad thing for trans people in the past handful of years. And if that makes me too woke, then I guess I'm just too woke.
Well, I love it. Thanks, I guess. It's funny you say that. I definitely agree in the terms of like the world, you know, in a bigger sense, and Twitter and all that. But personally, I feel like comedy has been such a saving grace for me, like comedians especially. I don't know what it is. Maybe I feel like there's this intersection between comedy and like mental health and like the darkness of the world that I find a lot of solace and connection with comedians. I always have. So it's really been, I don't know, maybe I just found the cool ones.
For sure. I should say that there are actually a lot of comedians out there really getting in the trenches and saying some very good things. You have to search for them a little bit. Some of the biggest comedians in the world have made it a weird mission to get on massive platforms and make life harder for people who, like, you know, to call out one comedian who's really huge in the UK and known to a degree in America, a guy I love. I've never met him, James Acaster. He had
yes.
Have you seen his bit? I really love it. I applauded it so much that, you know, go look it up for yourself. It's very funny. I will spoil it for you, so pause if you want to just go look it up. But effectively, he has a bit of, the premise is basically, man, I'm glad that comedians are finally sticking it to trans people, because I think trans people have had it too good for too long. I'm glad we're finally sticking it to that group of people who needed to be taken down a peg. And it's simple and charming, and where you go, yeah, this why people, anyway,
it's such a good bit. It's perfect.
Why Colorado? Colorado's a state that you feel particularly like you'll have access to things you need and safety there?
Yeah, so there's this cool resource online. I wish I knew the exact website. It's like an equality map. Basically, it's got a bunch of, they keep it updated. It's like a list of all the states in the United States and the different like legalities and like resources for like healthcare and like protections, and they've got it all listed by state. And so I pulled that up in desperation as I was in this like crappy living situation in Indiana, and was like, where could I go? And there were like, I don't know, at the time there were like 11 states where healthcare laws were going to be like required to cover trans healthcare. And I was like, all right, we're going to pick one of these. And then just kind of started looking into them. And I don't really know what it is about Colorado. It just kind of, it calls to me. I love to hike and mountains and all that stuff. And it's just beautiful and kind of in the middle of stuff and far away from most of my family. So that was a perk. Thought a fresh start, an adventure somewhere kind of cool would be great.
I think I found it. Is it lgbtmap.org?
Yeah, I think that's the one.
Map,
it's definitely something map. Yeah, it's a really good resource. It's awesome.
Yeah, color. It's and you know it's really funny. You can so they separate by color. It's states where it is basically tracking. As I'm reading it just very quickly, I'm like, oh, it seems to be aimed at visually representing the tracking of laws that affect the LGBT community. And Colorado is assigned to the color group that has the, I guess you could say, most welcoming. Would that be fair phrasing?
Yeah, definitely.
And Colorado is also the only state. I mean, New Mexico is close, but then it's surrounded by states where that's not the case. You look at the West Coast and the Northeast and you go, those are the hubs. And then actually the Midwest, sections of the Midwest coming correct. Kudos there.
Yeah.
And then Colorado's kind of an oasis in the middle.
That's true. I didn't think about that. But it's a big square, you know.
Yeah.
I think I for some reason had it in my brain that like California was going to be really like too expensive, and that whole area was going to be like, I don't know, it's really far away too. I feel like I didn't realize Colorado was so far away, but that's fine. Like driving wise, I was like, oh, it's like 25 hours.
And when do you think you're going to be able to make that move?
I'm aiming for August. It depends. I've been saving up for so in October, everything kind of exploded in Indiana. And I was sleeping in my car for a little bit, and my sister's family in North Carolina were kind of like, hey, just get here and we'll figure it out. So I've been here since like October, saving up. And recently I applied to, there's this really cool thing. It's out Boulder, Colorado. They have a fund set aside. It's the Trans Relocation Fund. And they set aside some money to help people relocate specifically for this purpose. And I just met with two amazing trans people that work there. And so hopefully, no news on if I'm going to get a little bit of help yet or not, but hopefully that'll come through, and August will be doable. If not, it'll take a little longer, but I'll get there.
I have two reactions to that. One is, this is the first I'm hearing of the Trans Relocation Fund, and hearing that there are people dedicated to figuring out how to make it feasible to financially get people to areas where they feel safer is really beautiful, and kudos to them. Yeah. Also, the need for the existence of a fund to get people to safe places is dystopian and scary. Yes. I want to ask you, you've brought it up twice now. You mentioned that you lived out of a car for a while. And that sounds grim. And just because you've brought it up, I'm wondering, how does that what's kind of the bullet points of how you get there?
Yeah, and I don't want to get too heavy on you, so stop me or ask more questions. I'll let you kind of.
I'm the one guiding. You've actually been okay. Like quite cheerful about all of this, and I'm the one that's immediately like, I don't know, this is scary. I don't want to laugh. Also, are you safe? Also, why aren't people safe? Yeah. So it's on me. It's on me. Gotcha.
Cool. Okay. I am safe. I'll just say my family in North Carolina are incredible. They have saved me. So many people in the last year have saved me, and I am so grateful, honestly, to so many people. I can't even express it. Especially, I guess, to get into like, what's crazy is that living in my car, it was only a few weeks, which I guess is longer when it's like a stressful, it can be a long time. I know people have to do that for longer though, but it was kind of great in a way. The situation wasn't great. I had been renting the basement of my parents' house in Indiana, and it wasn't like awesome, but it wasn't unlivable. They do their best. They don't use my pronouns or anything like that. It's complicated, but they're good people, in general. But I was trying to get out. I was kind of planning to get out of there anyway, when I could, but just, trying to save up money in the housing market and, working full time and overtime to barely scrape by. And then you can't really put anything away. It wasn't really getting there. But then a situation came up that kind of forced things a little bit. I don't want to get too dark. So there was a situation with a police investigation. I had made a report like 2 years ago at this point about some old stuff. And then in October, the police started investigating that stuff, and I had to give like a full report, and a detective was assigned and all this craziness. And that week, the person they were investigating, who has lived in New York for like 20 years, decided to come stay in town, in Indiana, like 5 minutes away. And he was coming to the house and stuff. And unfortunately, my family is messy and complicated. And they ended up kind of taking the side of him. And it just wasn't safe anymore. So I started staying in my car. And my incredible job in little middle of nowhere, Indiana, my people there all really got me transferred to North Carolina, like, I don't know, way quicker than that's supposed to happen, I think, and really had my back. And my family here were just like, just get here. And just the whole way people had my back and really facilitated getting out of there. So, so many cool people. And like I said, it was a crappy situation, but like, I don't know, I had this moment in my car. It was just like a terrible night. I hadn't been able to find anywhere to go. And I got my car, like I'd been like camping, kind of car camping, and I got stuck in like a ditch, kind of some muddy ditch area. And, I don't know, I was just like stuck and I didn't have signal, and I was like, everything's kind of gone south, and I don't know where I'm going, but I don't know how I'm going to get there. And I've kind of got nothing left except all these cool people. And someone who's, struggled with like depression and suicide my whole life. If there were going to be a moment, like that would have been it. And instead, I just had this moment of like realization of like, I just think I want to see what happens, and I'm done with all that. And I'm good. I remember I was like, I'm going to get this car out of this ditch because I just want to see what happens. I want to see if I can do it. And I did. I had like a little shovel in my car, and I got the car out of the ditch, and I just remember like laying on the ground, and there were stars, and it was this beautiful, like kind of chilly night, but like lovely. And it was just gorgeous. And I was like, I'm in the forest, which is like my happy place, and I'm free and I'm safe for the moment, like I'm good. Like, and I'm going to make it to work tomorrow, and it's fine. Like everything's fine. And now I get to do whatever I want. So it was kind of, it's not like a situation you want to happen, but in a way I feel like it's kind of turned my life in a direction that it needed to go. And now I'm free to do whatever I want.
Let's pause there. And now I'm free to do whatever I want. That's really what all of us are looking for. Not hurting anybody? Then go do what you want. That's what we're aiming for. That's what we say America's about. Anyway, you're free to do whatever you want. One thing you can do is check out these ads. We'll be right back. So happy to talk about Hiya. Hiya is kids' vitamins, and it's so simple and cool and sensical what they're doing. I know a lot of parents listen to the show. You're going to want to hear about it because when I got my hands on some Hiya, here's the first thing I was struck by is that we give Cal vitamins every day. And let's be honest, the vitamins that you're buying at the store, they're basically candy. And I know that. He's very enthusiastic about eating them. They are like gummy candies. And a lot of that gummy stuff is junk that's not healthy at all. You're sitting here trying to give your kids vitamins to make them healthier. And instead, it's teaspoons of sugar. It's chemicals. Like I said, it's junk. And that's why Hiya was created, the pediatrician-approved superpowered chewable vitamin. The really cool thing about this is that it's not like these are things your kids are going to hate. They'll still perceive these as like, oh, cool, kids' vitamins, candy time. No, they will perceive it as that. But that sugar content, they take it way down, okay? Most children's vitamins have about 5 grams of sugar in a serving. Hiya, 0 sugar, 0 gummy junk, but it still tastes great. Kids still flip out. My kid's a very picky eater. He loves them. Hiya fills in the most common gaps in modern children's diets, provides full body nourishment for kids with a yummy taste that they love. And just so you're clear, I mean, there's 15 essential vitamins in there. There's a blend of 12 organic fruits and veggies present. Vitamin D, B12, C, zinc is in there, folate in there. A lot of the stuff that your doctors tell you at those annual visits you have to get. Things that focus on immunity, brain function, mood, teeth, bones, all sorts of stuff. And on top of it, non-GMO, vegan, dairy-free, allergen-free, gelatin-free, nut-free. These are kid-safe in a way where you do not have to stress at all. Hiya is designed for kids 2 and up, sent straight to your door. So parents, you have one less thing to worry about. I love it. I love it. The bottle comes in. That's one of the cool things too. They send you this cool bottle. You get the refill every month. It's automatic. It's awesome. Also check out, they have a new kids probiotic. There's nighttime essentials there. There's all sorts of good stuff. And I just have to say, I've said it 4 times throughout the ad. Cal, very picky eater. He took to Hiya right away. And the idea that they're out here going, it's just such a lane. It's so obvious when you think about it. Hey, can we have kids vitamins that don't have as much bad stuff as good stuff in them that kids still like? Really incredible. My kid's living proof. He really enjoyed them. We've worked out a special deal with Hiya for their best-selling children's vitamin. You receive 50% off your first order. That's half. Now to claim this deal, go to hiyahealth.com/beautiful stories. This deal isn't available on their regular website. You have to go to hiyahealth.com/beautiful stories. Get your kids the full body nourishment they need to grow into healthy adults. I have to tell you, Delete Me is an incredible service. I was personally blown away. Maybe you're somebody out there, you've been scammed, you've dealt with identity theft, maybe you've got somebody who is being inappropriate in your life. Guess what? Privacy is not guaranteed in this world. I ran into this. I had a situation about 2 years ago where I was getting very, very nervous about some threats on the internet. It was a huge bummer. And especially being a father now, I have to take it seriously. So one thing that I realized is there's a lot of sites out there where people can find out a terrifying amount of information about you. Addresses you've lived at, including your current one, phone numbers, all sorts of stuff that gets floated around and makes you an easy target. I will tell you, I signed up with a service that told me they would get my private info off of all of those sites. And I thought I was pretty happy. And then Delete Me. I found out about Delete Me, used Delete Me. While those other sites had done a decent job, Delete Me came in and found dozens of places where my information had not been caught or where it had been put back in. and not flagged again. And I was able to see in a very personal way that there's services out there that aim to get your personal info off the internet, and Delete Me is the best one. I've tried a bunch of them. Delete Me came in and smoked them all. Your personal info is out there, everybody. People can get your social security number. They can get your parents' phone number and address, your siblings. They can harass all these people in your life. They can go for phishing attempts. It can lead to tons of these spam calls. You don't want your personal information on the internet. It's like giving people the key to your front door. You want to keep that door locked, okay? You don't want to wake up one day and discover that your bank account's been emptied, your credit cards have been compromised. I am out here publicly. I've had to deal with it. This idea of safety and security is intimately tied to the data that's out there about you on the internet. And I got to tell you, I personally use Delete Me, and I've been personally blown away and have seen that they are the most thorough of these services in my personal experience. Delete Me finds and removes all that personal info, and then they stick around and they make sure that it stays off. It's not just a one-time service. They stay working for you. They constantly monitor your personal information, make sure it's out there. They do the hard work of getting you and your family's personal info off the web. Take control of your data, keep your private life private, sign up for Delete Me, now at a special discount for our listeners. Today, you get 20% off your Delete Me plan when you go to joindeleteme.com/beautiful. Use the promo code beautiful at checkout. The only way to get 20% off, you go to joindeleteme.com/beautiful. Enter the code beautiful at checkout. That's joindeleteme.com/beautiful. The code is beautiful. Like I said, I've used them. They're better than any other service I've personally used. Delete Me's great. Get out there, everybody. Protect your info. Thanks again to all of our sponsors. Now let's get back to the phone call.
You know, it's not like a situation you want to happen, but in a way I feel like it's kind of turned my life in a direction that it needed to go, and now I'm free to do whatever I want. So I don't know. Sorry, that got heavier than I anticipated.
No, it was also beautiful though. It was also beautiful. This image of you saying, I'm not going to give in to the darkest impulses. In fact, I'm going to physically dig my way out of this, which is also metaphorically digging your way out of it, and then being exhausted and looking up at the stars. I sit there, I go, it's beautiful. And I will just say this. When I hear stories like the ones you're telling today, you think about all the things you do know and that you don't know in life, right? And I think all of us need to sort of take a step back. And there has been this very intense microscope put on the trans community in the past, really, I would say 5 to 10 years. It has gotten very intense, and it's become this major talking point. And for anybody out there listening, I bet there's been times where maybe you've debated it at your dinner table, or at the very least, you got some uncle who likes to make them, they comments, and you're not sure how to react and this and that. And I just always go back to the idea that talking to you today, talking to other trans callers who have called into this show, a handful of trans comedians I know, musicians I know, people who crossed my life as an artist in New York City, where you go, stories like this are not uncommon in this community of people. So when you start to look up the statistics on how many trans people take their lives or attempt to do so, when you look at the rates of homelessness, when you start to hear about stories of, I will move from state to state based on where there is safety for me. These are the sorts of stories that you hear over and over again with stunning commonality. and where all the stories are unique, but they share certain factors and tropes of people winding up feeling in harm's way or lonely or abandoned or some combination thereof. And you sit here and you go, we could either be sitting around our dinner tables listening to our relatives make they them jokes and little comments that you hear and say nothing, or you can recognize whatever, how would I want to phrase it? Whatever is happening here, and people want to have their opinions and their think pieces and this and that and their jokes, like I called out before. The one thing that seems to be true is that there are people out there suffering because of these conversations in this microscope. And you don't need to have a personal understanding to understand that you can, before you get to a point of your personal analysis being figured out as far as your quote unquote view on an issue goes. It was not an issue. It's people. People are suffering. I can still be compassionate. I can still care. I can still say that there shouldn't be communities disproportionately driven to homelessness, addiction, and suicide. And let's also recognize this, that over and over and over again, you also, the more open-minded you get about just hearing out conversations, we have conversations like this where I go, based on just everything you've told me thus far in the first 25 minutes of us talking to each other, I have to imagine that I'm not wrong in saying the easier choice, if this was choice-driven, would be don't commit to transitioning.
At least on paper.
On paper, if this was something that people could opt to not do, live out of a car, live in fear of people who, as you mentioned, you didn't want to get too specific and grim, but your family siding with someone you feel unsafe with, dropping everything to move from state to state based on laws that you don't know when they're going to change, when courts are going to do something that make it unsafe again. You sit here and go, if people had a choice in this matter, they would not do this. But your state of being is such that it's worth living in a car to be who you are. Respect that. Respect that. It feels more comfortable to be homeless than to try to prescribe to some sort of cockamamie theory that this is a choice. You look at the sacrifice, you look at the pain people go through, you go, get over yourselves and your little jokes and your little comments. We have to stop. There's a portion of society that's bleeding, and we are not stopping the bleeding. And in some cases, we are furthering the bleeding. And I'm so sorry that you've dealt with all this stuff. And it's really remarkable that you're able to jump on the phone and walk me through all this stuff in a way that still feels like a light conversation where we're chuckling the whole time. But I also will just sit here and say, God damn, what you're describing does not sound easy, and no one should have to go through it.
Yeah, well, I really appreciate that. And that is, I mean, I have to say that is down to the people that have been the lights along the way, you know. I mean, that really is, that's something I've realized this year more than anything is like people, I could lose everything in my life. If I had good people, you know, people I feel safe with, people I can be myself with and just honest and authentic with, you know, and my dog. I need my dog, but everything else, that's it. That's what matters. And that's a really, and something else I thought I kind of wanted to go back to what you were saying with like these little comments people make. I think there's this disconnect because what you're saying is so true. What trans people as a whole go through, the challenges and like who would choose that. And even when you just think about like when you hear, another kid has died somewhere by suicide or from, all the stuff that happens, it's like, I don't know how someone can see that and think that they wanted that. Like that if it was a choice, they wouldn't have just picked to go back, and I feel like it comes back to these little things where it's privilege, where people, I feel like at some level can't understand until someone opens their eyes to it, or they have to be really willing to do that themselves, where they, if you don't have to think about something, that's a privilege. And like those little comments don't mean much to them. It's just a little comment, but to these people in these states, it adds up to homelessness, and it adds up to not having access to care, and it's people's entire lives. And I think a lot of it is not malicious, but it adds up to malicious. This world that feels very dangerous, and I don't know. I think that's a struggle I have in my life. It's like, how do we fix that? And I don't have an answer, but
yeah.
No, it's.
I hear you.
Definitely.
Last year, I forget if I've spoken about this on the show before, but there was a very contentious school board election in my town. I live in this tiny town in Jersey.
Yeah.
And one of the guys running for school board got an endorsement from a group called Moms for Liberty, which I like moms, I like liberty. But when you look up what Moms for Liberty is, it's some really, really concerning book banning. And one of the big things that was being pushed was this idea of parental rights, and very specifically this idea of, hey, so if a kid comes out of the closet at school, parents should be informed. And specifically, if a kid starts showing up at school and, on any level, they want to use different pronouns at school. Well, parents should be informed of that. They bring a change of clothes and they change when they get to school, and then they change before they leave, and they're presenting differently. We're going to inform parents about that. And it was a big hubbub in my small town. And I was really, really scared that it could show up in a place this small.
Yeah.
And then I also heard from some other parents some parents who are friends of mine going, if my kid was going to school and asking to be, referred to differently, to present themselves, I would want to know. And I go, yeah, of course you would want to know, because you're a good, caring parent.
Right.
And my guess is that you would know, because your kids understand the love and the trust that you all have.
Yeah.
What happens to the kid with a homophobic parent? What happens to the kid who wants to use different pronouns, and then you call their dad, and their dad has had a few too many drinks, and this kid comes home and is under physical threat of abuse from an abusive parent? Like, these laws don't threaten the kids of people with parents who really care and want to be a part of the dialogue. It's the kids who feel like they need to hide the dialogue are hiding it for a reason. And I sit here and I go, it's one of the reasons that I'm so happy to talk to you and so happy you called today, because I'm going, man, that happened on my school board election. And if I'm being totally honest, that guy went and really celebrated his victory as far as his endorsement from the Moms for Liberty. And if he had kept that quiet, he probably would have gotten elected to the school board. But he made a real big deal out of it, to the point where a whole bunch of people went, wait, I've heard really concerning things about them. Like, he kind of went too big. I sit here and go, this is showing up at my goddamn doorstep. That was my kid's school board that was up for election. This is on our doorsteps, whether you think you know a trans person or not. First of all, you probably do on some level.
Yeah.
My guess is that you have probably crossed paths with all sorts of people, and you might not have a cursory understanding of who they are at first glance. Secondly, it's at all of our doorsteps, everybody. So get compassionate, get empathetic. Let's take care of each other.
Yeah. And that is, it's so dangerous for, I mean, kids especially. Like, I think something that's easy to forget as you grow up too is like how vulnerable you are when you're a kid. When you don't have like money or like a car, like you don't control anything. Like you're in such a state of reliance on the people, you know, your primary caretakers. And like, it's so easy to forget the gravity of that. And like, if those people aren't safe, you're not safe. Like that's it. That's your whole life. That's your whole world. And you can't do anything about it, you know, or the options are very limited for a lot of people. Like I didn't even come out until high school for that reason, just because I didn't know. It wasn't that my parents were like openly homophobic or anything. The risk was too big. And then in school, I finally was safe enough to come out to like my friends and my teachers. And that was my safe haven. And like the fact that school boards are trying to take that away from kids much younger is, I mean, it's going to cause a lot of harm. And like my nephew here is trans, and like, it makes me so scared for them and for all the kids in the world, you know. It's like almost, it's great. It's that double-edged sword of like awareness, you know. It's like, It's great that people are talking about this, but it's also now put a target where there weren't targets in certain ways. So yeah, now it's scary. It's a scary time. And I like to think we're moving in a good direction in a lot of ways, but then I don't know, then you hear things and you're like, that it comes back, you know, the pendulum kind of swings back and forth, and it's scary.
Yeah, it is. It is. Can I ask, you mentioned this high school experience. I'm wondering, you know, some of the questions that people will have is like, what is it like to come out? How do you know it's not a phase? What's the feeling of embracing sides of yourself and going, oh, I just moved forward and I don't want to move backward. I moved forward in a beautiful way. What's that experience like? Pause right there. Not gonna lie. Happy with that question. And the answer is great. We'll be right back with that and more. I have to tell you, I am not a great sleeper. I toss, I turn, I'm unable to get comfortable. If Hallie moves even an inch, I wake up and it's hard for me to settle back in. You sit here, you go, why is the middle part of my body hot and the top is warm and my feet are cold? I'm one of those people, okay? But guess what? Boll and Branch is here, and they're going to help you never sleep with those issues again. They have sheets that are woven to allow airflow. They feel cool and crisp to the touch, perfect for sleepers who run hot like I do. Boll and Branch has amazing options for hot sleepers. Choose from a 100% organic cotton percale. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Percale? No matter what I do know is that it's made with a naturally cooling weave. They also have linen, which I do know how to pronounce the word linen. It's made from a European flax to be light, airy, and softer than soft. This is really real for me. This is no joke. Every night I wake up, and when I have sheets on that are substandard, it's a problem. It's a problem. Sweating, tossing, turning, feeling like there's no breathing, feeling like I'm suffocating under there. Boll and Branch is top of the line. This is really true. I mean, first of all, they're bringing the heat with quality product. You can go check the reviews. There's love from millions of sleepers out there for their products, and they fit all kinds of mattresses, okay? The deepest of mattresses. You can go ahead. You can make sure that making your beds easy. They also, here's the thing that you're going to love hearing. They label the top part of sheets top. They label the bottom. They make it easy to make your bed. You're not going to be in the situation where you make your bed and realize that you accidentally put the sheet on upside down or sideways. They help you out, okay? And they give you a 30-night worry-free guarantee, free shipping and returns on all U.S. orders. That's how confident they are, okay? Get your coolest, most comfortable sleep with Boll & Branch. Get 15% off plus free shipping on your first set of sheets at bollandbranch.com/beautiful. That's BOLLANDBRANCH.com/beautiful. 15% off plus free shipping. Exclusions apply. See site for details. Hi, everybody. Chris here, and I'm very happy to be able to tell you about the Stories Podcast. Stories Podcast is one of the longest running podcasts for kids with over 500 episodes, so you can dive right in and find something for the whole family. Now, I'm going to tell you something I can speak with authority on. It's the fact that when you find something that's quality and good, that your kids will enjoy, that especially in moments where you just need a little peace and quiet, or maybe you're on a road trip and you just need them to focus on something so you can focus on driving, whatever it is, the stuff that is great for kids and also high enough quality that adults can get down with it, man, those things are few and far between. And the Stories Podcast really sets the bar as far as the type of thing that your kid is going to be able to lock in, you're in great hands, and also it's not going to drive you batty. Let's put it like that. Each week, the Stories Podcast brings you a family-friendly story that your kids are going to love, and you might just love too. There's classic myths in there, Zeus, Thor and Anansi. There's fun morale fables like The Tortoise and the Hare, classics like Winnie the Pooh, Peter Rabbit, Snow White, Rapunzel, and also original stories not heard before elsewhere. It's great. It's a screen-free way to enjoy family time. The writing's really tight. The performances are great. There's songs. There's so much silliness to lock onto. It's really a great time for kids and parents too. Look right now for Stories Podcast on Apple, Spotify, wherever you find your podcasts. Search Stories Podcast in your podcast app. Look for their green girl and dragon logo, Stories Podcast. Thanks again to all of our advertisers. Now let's finish the phone call. What's the feeling of embracing sides of yourself and going, oh, I just moved forward and I don't want to move backward. I moved forward in a beautiful way. What's that experience like?
I love that question. And I feel like there's so many people are so afraid to have these conversations, which I get because it's a tricky topic, but I love it. I love it so much. I'll talk to anyone about any of it. That experience, was so wonderful because the high school I went to was a dorm high school. So we went and we lived there for like 3 years, which was so cool because it really gave me this sense of freedom and like a home, with this community that really allowed me to kind of fly under the radar at home while figuring stuff out. And it just, the way I have found to describe it was there are these little moments where you really, I remember okay, sorry, too excited. I remember meeting someone who I knew was trans for the first time at that high school. And I hadn't had the language to describe it. It was the first time I really understood what that even was in like a way that you could describe. And that wasn't just, oh, I'm crazy. I'm just a crazy person. I've always been a crazy person, and that moment, it was just immediate. They introduced themselves and as trans, and in my brain I went, oh, that's it. That's the thing. I didn't know you could do that. That's the thing. That's this weight that's been on my shoulders for 14 years that I couldn't name. It just was this instant breath. And I didn't know what to do about it. And it took me, a long time to do anything else past that. But it was this instant knowledge of like something clicking, and the way because I have had a lot of doubts with myself, and there's like a history that ties into it's complicated things and things people have said that have kind of been like, well, are you just wanting to transition because of this or that? And a lot of stuff that held me back. So the way I've had to figure out to kind of be my own guide is there are these little moments like the first time I wore a binder. I just remember feeling like weight coming off, and then I couldn't put it back on. Like there was nothing in me. There was nothing anyone could have paid me. There was nothing in the world they could have offered that would have been worth putting that weight back on. It's like taking off a backpack full of rocks and then you're just lighter from then on a little bit in that way. And it's just right. And I don't know how else to describe it other than it's just kind of like a pain you didn't realize was there, and then it's gone and you can't put it back. And so that's really how I've kind of let that guide me in my transition, to be like, I don't care about labels. I don't care about, the reasons. It's just like what feels right and what continues to feel right. And I'm just going to do that. And yeah, I don't know if that made any sense, but
oh, it was beautiful. It was beautiful.
It's like, yeah, it's just if something feels unbearable to undo and it's not hurting anybody, why do that? I physically couldn't. I thought about, like, I couldn't do it. I couldn't go back.
Yeah. And it's tough for everybody, because I think I mentioned before, parents do sit here and go, well, what if it was my kid? I would want to know. And you sit here and you hear something like what you just said, and I go, well, if it was, and I am a father now, and you sit here and go, if your kid told you that life to them feels like they have a bag of rocks hanging off of them at all times, or they can wear something like a binder, or wear clothes, or any other number of ways that people can start to experiment with how they view themselves and present themselves. And they go, well, when I do this, I feel less like a bag of rocks is dragging me down at all times. You sit there and go, take a deep breath, let your kid feel that freedom and that happiness. I'd rather have my kid alive and happy and embracing themselves, even if it creates panic, even if it creates this feeling with people who are set in their old ways. Wouldn't you rather have your kid alive and feeling free and unburdened than living to the standards of what you think things should be, but the kid feels dragged down by life and is contemplating death? You start to think about it like that. You go, it's not much of a contest.
Right. And at least that way they've got you, like they've got someone in their corner. That would have made, I can't even say the difference. If I knew my parents had my back from the get-go, everything else is, I don't need the world. I don't need my grandpa to care. Like, I don't need random people at Lowe's that care. Like, my parents know me and they love me anyway. And that's it. That's what else do you need? Is like your people. And unfortunately, a lot of us have to find people instead of the ones we're born with. And, I understand the fear that parents have. I think there's a strong, I get it, like the denial, because it's terrifying. But it just does more harm, but it's so hard to step through that. And especially if you don't have the education, the awareness, and the ability to verbalize it. And, but at the end of the day, it ends up being, all right, so you've got this belief and you don't want it to be true, so you deny it. And now it's still true, but now your kid's alone with it. And that's worse. Like, yeah. And I'm like tearing up a little bit. So every time I talk to a parent that gets it, I feel like it heals me a little bit. It's like the world is not just that. And there are kids who have that. And that's just the whole world. You don't have to know everything. You don't have to have all the answers. You don't have to fix Congress, if you could do it, but just to be like, hey, I see you and I got you. That's it. I feel like that's what most of us, at least me and the people that I know, that's all we want, is to just let us live. It's like, I don't know how to put it other than that. It's just like, just let us be who we are. And that's it. That's all we want.
Yeah. You mentioned that
it shouldn't be complicated.
No, it is one of these things, and it's happened on the show pretty much every time we have someone call who is trans, non-binary, non-conforming, whatever classification you want to label it with. You sit here, you go, oh, you talk with someone for 20 minutes, and this really feels a lot simpler than we are letting it be as a society. Like, just let somebody pee where they want to pee. It takes
truly
90 seconds. Like,
yeah,
it takes 90 seconds. Like, let someone just go
a hole
pee.
In the ground. Let me pee in it and leave, please.
Yeah. And then you start to get into all these debates about sports, and you start to get into all these things too, which have, the thing that bums me out as I sit here and go, we'll figure this out. We'll figure it out. But I feel like a lot of the people who are the most loudly ringing alarm bells about trans people in sports don't give a shit about sports. They give a shit about having a reason to come down on trans people. So, like, all right, trans people are breaking records in women's sports, and is that fair? We as a society will figure that out. My inclination is that, like everything else, this is not that complicated. But right now, I don't trust 99% of the motherfuckers even bringing it up, because I don't think you give a shit about women's sports. I don't think any of you have thought about women's sports outside of it being an excuse for you to scare trans people. I just don't buy it. So it's a false flag. It's a rigged conversation. My guess is that there's very simple answers to all of this. You mentioned that in your experience, you've had to find people. Like, find your people. Are there people you can remember back in those high school days who, and it actually sounds too, you said that you were lucky enough to meet someone else who started expressing the trans experience, and you went, boom, I get it. Yeah. I have noticed, at least in my personal experience, I have a few friends who come out as queer, and then maybe a few steps to fully embrace there's almost like a few stages of coming out. It's a little more unusual, I think. And I don't know that for a fact. This is all anecdotal, so pardon any ignorance. Do you remember any people along the way who became those people you could lean on? People who surprised you? Yeah. Yeah. What are some of those stories? Because that's got to feel great too.
It's incredible. My best friend, I met in high school, and she's still my best friend to this day. Ride or die forever. And like other people I met, the person who actually sent me that trans relocation fund is someone I knew in high school, and we haven't talked in 10 years. We have each other on Facebook, and they saw that I was looking at Colorado, and they were like, yo, look at this. Like, that's, the kind of community that school had was just incredible, progressive, forward-thinking people just trying to, their motto is advancing the human condition. And they really, so many people there, really, that's their goal in life. And, I could probably name 20 people at that school that were that rock for me. And I unfortunately haven't kept in contact with a lot of them, but my best friend forever. We still talk every once in a while, we'll pick up the thread and it's like nothing's happened. Every 2 months or something. And then my godfather, he passed a few years ago, but he was another one in my life. He was just instantly like, yeah, okay. And he found out I don't even know how he found out. I think probably at my graduation, thinking back, because he was there, and they read my chosen name instead of my birth name, and I think that's how some of the family found out, which is interesting that I let that happen. I don't know. I didn't think about it probably, but he immediately was like, "Yo, why didn't you tell me sooner? Yeah, this is great. What do you want me to call you?" And then like was like a warrior in my corner, you know, for the years that I had him. Like he was someone who, because my parents they try. It took a few years before they started using my name. Pronouns they don't really do. But every step I feel like we've taken, it's been like begrudging. You know, it's like I've had to fight for it, and I've had to really kind of beg. And with him, it was just like the opposite. He was thrilled that he could know me in that way, just truthfully. And his neighbors, he would introduce himself as he would introduce me as his godson to anyone he got the chance to. And it just was like, oh my God, what a guy. Incredible. And it's this interesting thing. I think I'm even learning still with transitioning that there's a few distinct feelings. And there's that once you've kind of come out to yourself, there's this time that I spent doing things that didn't suck. Like I started wearing gender neutral clothing, or clothing that was like from the boy section, but it was like, you know, it didn't suck. And I cut my hair in a way that didn't suck. And I picked pronouns that didn't suck. And then there's this other side of it where I didn't even realize till a few years ago, I could do things that made me happy, where I was like, oh, that outfit makes me feel good. Like growing a beard makes me feel good. Like I want to do these things intentionally. I'm not just avoiding suffering, you know, which was kind of where I thought it ended for a long time, was like, okay, we'll just do the things that aren't painful. And there's so much more than that. Like when I got my testosterone prescription, it was really, truly the first time in my life I had ever been able to imagine a future. Like I just found myself daydreaming about being like a guy, just like a happy guy with like in the future, just living a life. And I could just see myself in a life that I felt like was worth living and that I was excited about for the first time. And like, I didn't even really realize I hadn't had that, you know, there's more than just avoiding the bad shit. There's so much more. I don't remember what started that train of thought or where it was going, but
I love just hearing that thought of like, oh, life can be more than just avoiding bad shit. Like, oh, right there. It's funny for someone who ends so many thoughts by going, wait, I don't know if that made sense, or how did we even get there? I'm like, well, you're also just like spitting poetic summations of your experience. It does bring something to light though, of you just going like, oh, as you find more and more choices, tracks to go down, where you go, oh, this feels really good. I'm feeling, one thing that I'm very aware of is that this show, a lot of times, you know, we get 1 hour together and people will call up and go, well, here's who I am. And if we're only going to talk for an hour, I'll talk about this, right? And in some cases, it's this. It's like a matter of life and death identity. Other people call up, they go, yeah, my family owns a kite store. And we talk about the kite store for him. But that person has more to their life than owning a kite store. And when the world is not forcing you to relentlessly think about your own identity, what's your life like outside of your identity as a trans man?
Yeah. That's where I think I'm so excited right now, is because I feel like in like this stuff with my family, and there's been a lot that I feel like I've been on pause in survival mode for most of my life, really. And then everything kind of fell apart and survival mode wasn't working anymore. And now it kind of forced me to try something else. And like decide if it was worth it or not. And that's where I'm at, is like, now I get to do anything. And I'm kind of grappling with that. It's like, whoa, shit, what am I going to do? And I have so many ideas. Like I'm an artist, and I have so many things I want to make. And I'm going to school to be a vet tech, and, you know, I want to work with animals, and I want to, like, I don't know, get a big sanctuary and adopt a bunch of dogs from shelters and just let them run around. And I don't know, or get into like advocacy stuff, with like domestic violence and like survivors. And like, I would love to get involved in that kind of stuff. I did CASA for a few years. I don't know if you've heard of that.
No.
It's court appointed special advocates. It's basically it's volunteer, and you just kind of, you're assigned a kid or a group of kids who've been removed from their home for whatever reason. And you're kind of just their advocate, and you go to court for them and make sure their needs and their voice are being heard. And you don't make any decisions. You're just kind of like a person to make sure they're being heard. And that was the coolest thing I ever got to do. I would love to be in a space where I could do that again, or anything. I think that's what I'm realizing. It's like, I could do anything as long as I'm doing something that makes something in the world a little bit better. That's it. That's all I want from life. I want to be relatively safe, and I have cool people around, and I want to make things a little bit better than I found them. And that would be a good life. Which is a question I've grappled with, you know, from the beginning. Is like, what's the point? What do we do? And I think that's what we do. You know, you're one person, and you do what you can do. And sometimes that's the whole world to someone, you know? So I don't know. Yeah, I guess it could go in a lot of different directions, but I'm excited about all of them.
Just to hear you instantly go, well, if I didn't have to live in survival mode, I would want to be making cool shit, and also going into a court system and helping kids, be an advocate. And again, we all know how the world works right now, that there's people out there who will hear that and go, well, what example does it set? If the advocate is a trans person, is that sending a message to a kid? It's like, motherfucker, are you going into the court system to advocate for the kids? If you're not actively doing that, respectfully,
right,
shut the fuck up. Just pipe the fuck down.
Like they need volunteers. Get in there.
They need volunteers. They need people with lived experience. They need people who understand pain. My guess would be that someone who has had to take a step back from family because of family taking the side of someone you feel threatened by, someone who has lived in a car, someone who has had suicidal ideation. I sit here, I go, man, there's so many ways for you to empathize with others. And to hear that you go, oh, if I wasn't living in the survival mode that I'm often asked to live in, I'd be contributing to the safety of vulnerable people in the court system. You sit there, you go, how is this even an argument? Why are we even arguing? Even just hearing you phrase it as survival mode scares the shit out of me, because I know so many people feel that way. And people from a lot of walks of life. But right now, I think survival mode really stands out in the trans community. It really stands out more and more, even in the past few weeks. Not to equate them in any way, but the immigrant community is just being fucked with again. And you sit here and you go, when we put wide swaths of people in survival mode, we got to consider a few things, which is one, survival mode is a pass-fail system, right? Survival mode does not provide any range. Survival mode is you live or you die. You keep surviving or you stop surviving. And if you make people feel like they're in survival mode, there's a few things I would put to that, which is one, it does not afford the chance for people to self-determine the happiness of their life. If you're just clamoring for survival, if you're clamoring to have a place to sleep, to put food on the table, to make sure that your kids are safe at night, if those are your priorities, you're not giving any allowance for people to self-determine their own pursuit of happiness. It's just a fundamental core thing. And on top of it, and this is not in any way meant to be threatening, it's just simple human logic. It's if you put people, if a system is in place that systemically puts people in a place where they feel like they're in survival mode, people don't go, okay, my job is to survive or die. I guess I'll eventually give up and die. Now, sadly, some people do. Some people take their own lives. But more often what you're going to get is instead people going, fuck this system.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's not good for the people. That's not good for the system. It's a lose-lose proposition for everybody. So, and you know, there are many other groups we could name that are so often forced into fucking survival mode. And hearing you use that phrase, I sit here, I go, it's just the way you phrased it. Again, you have this really tricky way of just phrasing away in the thing where you go, yeah, if it wasn't survival mode, I'd be making more art and I'd be helping more people and I'd look for more advocacy and it's exciting to think about. And I go, man, let's get people out of a survival mode mindset. And in fact, more and more, it feels like the past handful of years, forcing more people into that.
Yeah. Yeah. Just housing alone, just the way things have inflated in prices in the last 3 years, groceries. I mean, that on its own, without all the everything else.
Housing and health insurance. You want to talk about survival mode? Housing and health insurance.
Health insurance. Oh my God, it's insane. I pay so much money for the worst health insurance. I can't get any health care, and it's so expensive. It's wild.
That is
it's crazy.
We actually just hit 0 on the timer, which I think is a fantastic place to end our time on the free feed. Because, and here's the other thing I'll say too. While yes, you might be in a situation where there's more specific healthcare, and I would imagine maybe more expensive, there's a lot of people who are regular middle Americans right now nodding their heads going, yeah, I pay too much for shitty healthcare too. And those are just people who have to worry about, you know, breaking their legs or catching the flu. Anyway, there's so much more to discuss. I will also say, we're going to say goodbye to the people on the free feed. If you want more with today's caller and all callers in our recent memory, beautifulanonymous.com. We're going to do 5 questions. These are random. We use a random number generator to ask questions off a list. And what I'm so thrilled about is I think it's such a beautiful way to continue this tail end of the conversation we had, which is like, hey, when you're not forced to be in survival mode and think about identity, who are you beyond that? And these 5 questions, I think, should be a really beautiful way to continue that. So if you're down to hang out, let's keep it going.
Yeah. Awesome.
Caller, thank you so much once again. And I said this to you in the bonus content, but for the sake of the outro and the free feed, I will say, and we talked about this in the call, but just want to thank you again. It's emotionally risky to go out and represent a community and have your experience represent the broad experience of others. It's not an easy ask. Thank you for letting me put you in that position, and thanks for stepping up and being so honest and so charming. It's a great conversation. Thanks to the High Priestess, Andrea Quinn. Also, you got to check out the bonus content if you want to hear Andrea's worst timed hang up ever, everybody. And she would agree with me on that one. Thank you to Shellshag for our theme music. Go to punchup.live/Chris Gethard for my tour dates. Our voicemail line is at 973-306-4676. You can join the Facebook group if you want to talk about episodes. We're also on Instagram at Beautiful Anonymous Pod. This week on Beautiful Anonymous Plus, here's some of what you'll get from the 5 questions. The general consensus is that some of those big cities are also probably the places where you have the most freedom to be yourself. They also cost a ton of fucking money.
So much money. So much money. Yeah, and I'm sure there's someone out there who understands why and how that works.
Yeah.
I don't.
Yeah.
I wish I did, because it's like, how do we fix it? You know?
I know. And especially because none of us can quite verbalize it. And then so many of us have this sneaking suspicion of like, somebody knows I could fix it like tomorrow.
Yeah.
This has to do with Airbnb somehow. I'm not smart enough to know how, but I'm smart enough to know this is somehow Airbnb related. I've heard that much.
Absolutely. And Amazon or something. I'm sure it's Walmart. Somebody knows. Someone's doing it.
Walmart, they need to give better insurance. And Elon Musk is involved in this somehow, I think. And
I'm sure.
There's too much plastics in the ocean, and that has a lot to do with this as well. There's a lot of these things that are connected. I'm just sadly not smart enough to connect all the dots.
Mood.
Don't forget to sign up for Beautiful Anonymous Plus at beautifulanonymous.com.
From navigating headlines,
fentanyl poisoning more prevalent than COVID deaths, car accidents, and even suicide,
to a proven strategy for success.
If you do that every day, it changes the way you go through this world.
That then translates into something physical as well as something chemical in your brain.
Critical and relevant information to help you navigate through life.
It leads to a higher degree of success.
Fill in the blanks. Available on Apple Podcasts and Spotify.